I am Baratunde Thurston. I'm a storyteller of interdependence across our relationships with the earth, with each other, and with technology. When things feel heavy, Beyoncé gives me great joy. And to be in an actual concert, doesn't have to be hers, but a live music venue where you can feel the energy of other people and you can almost feel us all setting our burdens down and choosing to be joyful. That really helps. I think I'm motivated by the complexity that is in my family history and probably all of ours. My mother's mother was, in many ways, a harsh, not great parent, abusive or tolerant of abuse. And she was the first Black person to work inside the Supreme Court building and achieved incredible things for any era, much less the 1940s. So I hold her achievements and her deficits together, and that whole image of a person gives me hope. I remember seeing Nelson Mandela when he came to the U.S. after being released from prison, D.C. Convention Center. Huge moment. And I grew up with knowledge of a lot of the apartheid struggle at a pretty young age. So to see that man achieve his own freedom after working so hard to achieve the freedom of others, that was a really significant proof point that you can make a difference. At the center of a new democracy, I would put an old idea that was practiced and central to the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which predates our U.S. democracy. There's a ceremony they practice at every gathering. It's called a condolence, where you wipe tears, you acknowledge the grief, the baggage you walk in with. You make space to honor that before you get down to business. I think we could all use that. We're often walking into spaces with a lot of our own traumas and baggage, and we need to take a moment to set those things aside so that we can get about the people's business together. I feel most like a founder with others who, for moments at a time, have hope, and we're working on something together. I don't feel like a founder when it's just me, myself, and I on my own. Even though that's a common image of founding, I think it really is a team sport. We the people means that we are centering the collective, that we have a sense of identity and first person that is plural, and that we look out for one another and are a part of each other. When I was a child, under 12 years old, I volunteered at a soup kitchen on a regular basis with my mother. And I recognized the lack of distance between me and people who had almost nothing. It made me feel more connected to others who, through a screen, I would feel really distant from. America is obsessed with individualism and independence at the expense of community, belonging, shared purpose, mutual need, and aid. And I think to our deficit. I have grown to understand interdependence as a necessary balancing component of independence and of sovereignty. And I think with that expanded view, I look at this country and it makes me want so much more. And it often makes me deeply sad that so many of us don't recognize what we're missing out on. We've seen the consequences of not seeing humanity in each other. Loneliness, dehumanization, high levels of stress. That's not enjoyable. That's hard. and unnecessarily so. And I find hope in joy and enjoyment of each other. So I think when we see ourselves in each other, we actually reduce the burden on each of us. And it makes us all more capable of achieving the things that we both need and want. And that's tangible. That's real. It's literally a better return on our energetic investment into this life to do it with each other. I am recently inspired by the pre-existing democracy that was here. I think so much of what we're seeking right now in terms of the climate disaster that we're living through, in terms of the democracy disaster that we're living through, have some solution in indigenous practices from people who've been close to the earth the whole time around. And the novelty of governing with nature, of governing for 7 generations forward and backward. The novelty apparently today of making sure that women have an equal seat at the table. Some of these are very old ideas, very innovative for their time and now. So the ancientness of some of the wisdom that we still need today, I find inspiring because it means we already have what we need. What gives me hope right now is to see people rallying to stand up with and for each other and for this planet. There's so much good activism and good trouble happening. I think I imagine a country for my children's children, or even somebody else's children's children, that adheres to a different concept of borders and belonging. One where people are aligned much more with nature's boundaries, where they see themselves in each other, and where they acknowledge the failures of their history, not as things to be made to feel ashamed of and try to hide, but opportunities to learn and to improve.